Hey, what's up? Welcome to another edition of The Mandatory. Thank you so much for rocking with us. If you already have subscribed to the show, thank you so much. If you haven't, click that subscribe button. Also, make sure to follow us on our social media channels. We're at The Mandatory TKO. Also, you can find us on the audio side. So remember, wherever you find any of your audio, if you got a couple of minutes, leave a rate and review. That always helps the show grow. And once again, we appreciate you rocking with us. This is an interactive show, so make sure to keep those comments coming because we will get to those comments. And today we got a lot on deck because obviously we're going to get into the Tyson Fury, Oleksandr Usyk preview, but there's also another banger on Friday, a great card as well. Emmanuel Navarrete and Dennis Berinchek are going to be fighting. So we're going to get into that as well. But Bryan, before we do all of that, let's get into why we're kind of doing this preview, because we've been waiting for this fight for a minute. It got postponed because of a Tyson Fury cut, but Tyson Fury and Oleksandr Usyk, it's going to go down. Finally, we're going to get an undisputed heavyweight champ. This is the first time in a very, very long time. I think the last time it was Lennox Lewis, and I was like 10 years old or something like that. So it's been an extremely long time. It's great for boxing. But nonetheless, what are your thoughts heading into this fight and how excited are you for it?
We've been looking forward to this fight for a long ass time. A couple years at least. I think with Tyson Fury and Oleksandr Usyk, this should be a bigger deal than it is. I feel like it's not really getting as much mainstream attention as I expected. Maybe that'll heat up over the course of the week, but we haven't had an undisputed champion since 2000, and we're talking about Lennox Lewis being vacated or having to vacate, or rather being stripped actually of the WBA title because he didn't want to fight John Ruiz, and John Ruiz was boring as shit. So I don't know if you could blame him. So there's that element of it as well. But yeah, Tyson Fury, he's wanted this. Oleksandr Usyk has absolutely wanted this, and Oleksandr Usyk is already unified in the cruiserweight division. He was undisputed there. I think people are still sleeping on how technically sound he is, and some people think he got knocked out by Daniel Dubois last year. So both are kind of coming off questionable performances. You have Danny Dubois one, and you also have Tyson Fury against Francis Ngannou, which we haven't saw since. Which I continue to say I don't think he trained seriously for that fight. I legitimately don't think he gave a shit leading up to that fight and just kind of showed up, and he was bigger than normal. He's super lean now. I wonder what he's gonna weigh in at. He might be in the 250s like he was against Otto Wallin. So it's gonna be very interesting. But I think, man, I'm very excited for this. I just wish it was not in Saudi Arabia because the time difference and things of that
Mm.
nature, and just like I'd rather have big fights between dudes who are from Europe, be in Europe, or maybe even here where they're both known. But so be it. This is the way boxing is going now.
Yeah, it would have been pretty sick to have them at Wembley or something like that. Could you just imagine how great that would be? Sweet Caroline playing everywhere. That might happen
I
regardless in this fight, which, yeah, by the way,
Yeah.
I like Boston fans love that. And every time I hear it, I just think of Boston. I think of the Bruins as a Canucks fan. I hate that. But nonetheless, I'm extremely excited for this fight because I feel like we've been wanting it for extremely long time. I felt like Tyson Fury was playing a bunch of games before. Oleksandr Usyk wanted the fight, and now we're finally getting it. And like we mentioned, it's been an extremely long time since there's been an undisputed champ. I was just a kid the last time with Lennox Lewis. So the fact that these two guys are coming into this fight and they're going to give it their all. You talked about Tyson Fury and how he looks a lot leaner. I believe at some point he came in at like 300 pounds. Like, I don't know if it was 300 for Francis Ngannou, but he did not look like himself.
278 ish,
Pretty
basically.
close, pretty close to 300, right? So he's coming into this fight leaner. He looks good. And I think that's great for Tyson Fury because I think maybe a lot of people are looking at the Francis Ngannou fight and questioning him. I don't think you should. And then a lot of people look at Oleksandr Usyk and they're like, hey, is his chin a little bit sus as well? We know Fury has that power. But like you mentioned, Oleksandr Usyk, he cleaned out the cruiserweight division, right? He's extremely skilled. And we talk about him fighting a bigger guy. Listen, he beat Anthony Joshua twice. Anthony Joshua is also a very big puncher, despite the fact if you like Anthony Joshua or not. I believe he has the best heavyweight resume. So everyone can hate on AJ all they want, but to me, he has the best heavyweight resume. And these guys are going to get it on. Finally, we're getting this fight, and I think it's great for boxing. Now, Brian, let's get right into it because we were taking a look at the odds yesterday, and it seems like more money has now come in on Oleksandr Usyk just from yesterday. Let's get right into the fight. Tyson Fury is a minus 118 straight up on the money line, and Oleksandr Usyk is a minus 102. Your thoughts on the line and how it's moved within the last 24 hours?
Well, this line was actually flipped because Usyk was the favorite. So on this particular one, more money came in on Fury overnight, or at least since yesterday when I last checked. And there's another line with another prominent sportsbook where more money came in on Usyk, where Fury was the favorite, and it's gotten closer, and it's all over the place, and it's a legit 50-50 fight, which we don't get a lot of high profile 50-50 fights in this sport. So this is why this is like a fight of the year contender for me, and also one where it's like, as Hustle Man says in the comments, and please do leave comments because we're going to get to as many of them as we could over the course of this preview. But to me, this can be a stylistically just beautiful boxing match. It's not, I don't expect it to be a brawl that would shock me. I think it's going to be very tactical, a lot of counter punching, some level of aggression, some measure of aggression. Usyk trying to figure out the puzzle because Tyson Fury is just the combination of size, strength, and speed is unlike maybe anything we've seen in the heavyweight division, at least recently. It's definitely unlike it. It's what has given so many top flight heavyweights problems. And I think when he's at his best, he's better than everyone else in the heavyweight division. And I don't know how close it is. Oleksandr Usyk is going to have to survive the sort of strength disadvantage and the size disadvantage that he has. Um, and I think that's going to be interesting to figure out because he's clearly good enough, but Tyson Fury is 6'9" with a 7'1" reach. Oleksandr Usyk doesn't have that. He's 6'3". His reach is probably 6'5", 6'6", around there, at best. So how do you sort of combat that if you're not necessarily a power puncher either, is what I want to see if he figures it out. So it's going to be very, very fascinating. Like as a boxing fan, as a purist, quote unquote, and as somebody who's been covering boxing for years, and as somebody who appreciates the science behind it. I don't care to see knockouts all the time. I could give a fuck less. There may be one in this fight, who knows? But I think it's going to be a great just boxing match, and I can't wait for that.
You know what? This is the true 50-50 fight, but every time I end up saying that, it turns out to not be a 50-50 fight as of
Mm,
late. So I'm kind
mhm.
of scared of saying that, but at the same time, I'm going to keep it real. I've been back and forth on who's going to win this fight because at some point, I don't really know, but I've had a pick in my mind for the entire time. The entire time, ever since there was talk about Tyson Fury and Oleksandr Usyk fighting, when Usyk came into the heavyweight division after clearing out the cruiserweight division, took care of Anthony Joshua twice. In my mind, I've had a pick the entire time, but I've been back and forth because I'm like, do I want to go with this pick? And I'm not going to lie to you, it's going to be a game time decision. I'm going to make my pick live on this show. I'm just going to go for it. It's going to be a game time decision because that's how back and forth I've been with this fight. Because we talk about Tyson Fury, we talk about the size advantage, we talk about the power and the speed. And then Oleksandr Usyk, listen, he might not have that power of Tyson Fury, but he breaks you down. He moves around the ring really well, and he is extremely skilled. So stylistically, this is an amazing matchup. And like Hustle Man said, let's go to, by the way, keep some comments coming, guys. I want to put this comment up. This might be an all-time classic and more competitive than people think. Both very capable of beating each other on any given night. And that's the thing. By the way, there is a two-way rematch clause. So these two guys are going to make a lot of money and they're probably going to do it again. They are going to do it again because why not? And we're going to get into all of those aspects of what it means if one of them wins because we know there's going to be a rematch. But Brian, why don't we just get right into it? When you take a look at the line, we talked about it. How are you betting this fight? And after all the anticipation, who do you have winning?
If you follow me on the Action Network app, I've already placed my bet, and I did it yesterday. I'm going with Tyson Fury by decision at plus 220. I can't believe I found it at plus 220. That was very, very interesting to me. It is probably not plus 220 anymore because the book that I found it at plus 220, he was an underdog yesterday and is now a slight favorite. So that's probably, it's still going to be plus money, but
On FanDuel, it's still plus 220 for Fury to win by decision. So
Jesus.
you can still get that right now. If you believe Tyson Fury is going to win by decision, plus 220, the odds there are great, tons of value.
I don't want to pick a knockout in this fight. I feel like if there is one, it could be late, but it would likely be Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury, I mean, he has been dropped 7 times in his career. Now, granted, 4 of them are from Deontay Wilder, who's maybe the hardest hitting heavyweight of my lifetime. And you also have one from Steve Cunningham, former cruiserweight champion. Is that something that Oleksandr Usyk could potentially exploit? But that was more of a flash knockdown, and Tyson Fury's recovery in general when he gets dropped is exceptional. Like we've seen him recover from devastating knockdowns, get back up, and box his ass off. So I've leaned that way. I also think a draw at plus 1400 is worth a look because I legitimately think that could happen. Because one, it could be a very close fight. Also, two, boxing shenanigans. Just in case. And if there's gonna be a rematch clause, having a 114 scorecard, like it's kind of makes sense. So I think draw plus 1400, something also worth looking at. But Tyson Fury has been my lean the entire time. I was not deterred by the Francis Ngannou performance because I just think that he came in and didn't give a shit, and he gives a shit about this fight clearly. So I'm backing him to win by decision at plus 220.
You know what? I really like the draw aspect, to be honest with you. I love it.
I
I'm
had a
gonna
feeling.
sprinkle. I'm gonna sprinkle on that. That's not actually my pick. I'm gonna go with the pick that I had in my mind since I've been envisioning this fight for almost over a year now. Like this has been in my mind for a very, very long time, kind of like how I had with Bud and Spence. And so, listen, the reason why I love this fight is they always say in boxing, styles make fight. And that's exactly how this fight is, right? Because Tyson Fury, we talk about how big he is. He's going to have the reach advantage, the height advantage, probably the weight advantage. We know that Oleksandr Usyk is the smaller guy, but Tyson Fury, he's got that speed and power. And I think the way he fights this fight is going to be the most interesting. Because if I'm Tyson Fury, I know Oleksandr Usyk is a great counterpuncher. He moves around the ring really well. And how am I going to fight this fight? Am I going to keep it at a distance? If I'm Tyson Fury, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to try to keep it at a distance because I don't want Oleksandr Usyk to continue to counter me every time. And so, because that's how Oleksandr Usyk is going to get his points, right? He's going to move around the ring really well. He's going to be counter punching you. He's going to be using his jab. He's really good at those things. Tyson Fury, though, has the speed and the power. The only thing that I question is he also is coming into this fight after having a cut, which is why it got postponed. We were supposed to get this fight in February, were we not? Yes, it was in
and
February.
and also in December, but you know, he fucked around with Francis Ngannou, so that didn't end up materializing.
Yeah, so Tyson Fury, like, regardless of all of his antics and, I want 70-30 and all of this stuff with Alexander Usyk, it's all entertainment and he knows how to sell a fight. But I think the cut to me is interesting because I also believe that cut that he suffered against Otto Wallin, that's a cut. Like, once you get cut in a certain place, you might get cut again. I'm not saying the cut's going to have an impact on this fight. It could possibly, depending on what happens in this fight. At the same time, I'm taking a look at this and I'm like, man, Tyson Fury's been in some wars.
Mhm.
Some absolute wars. You talk about Deontay Wilder being the hardest puncher of our generation, essentially. He is. You can put him up there with like top 10 punchers of all time. That's how hard Deontay Wilder hits. And Tyson Fury was able to get through that. Like, he is one of the best heavyweights of this generation, but he's been in some wars. And then I think about Oleksandr Usyk, and this is not a play on this, but he's fighting for more than just his boxing legacy. He's fighting for a country that actually looks to him for hope. There's so much riding on this fight, and it means so much more than who's going to be undisputed, even though that's great for boxing fans. I think Alexander Usyk is going to be fighting this fight in a different way where Tyson Fury is also going to have to make adjustments, right? Because Alexander Usyk is going to be trying to close the gap. And Tyson Fury is going to be trying to use his distance because why wouldn't he? He's the bigger guy. He's going to be using his speed, using his power. But what Oleksandr Usyk does is he breaks you down round by round, and he's going to be moving around the ring a lot. I want to see how Tyson Fury's conditioning is going to be because I know Oleksandr Usyk's conditioning is going to be on point. Not questioning Fury and his conditioning, but I expect this fight to go the distance. I do think there's going to be a knockdown in this fight. I don't know if both guys are going to be knocked down, but I do believe that's a possibility. But I just feel like Oleksandr Usyk, the way he moves around the ring, he's already fought a big guy in Anthony Joshua, beat him twice, already fought a bigger puncher as well in Anthony Joshua because we know how heavy handed AJ is as well. I'm actually going to roll with Oleksandr Usyk to win by decision at plus 185, and I'm taking him in this fight to win. I just think his skill and the way he moves around the ring is essentially going to cause some problems for Tyson Fury when it comes to conditioning later on in the rounds. And Oleksandr Usyk is going to be able to counterpunch him as well. I think this was an extremely tough fight for me to pick, but I got to roll with Usyk because I've been thinking in my head for over a year now that he would win this fight. And it's no disrespect to Tyson Fury. I just think that Oleksandr Usyk, everything that he's fighting for, and it's more than just boxing, that plays into it as well. This is going to be an extremely good fight. And I like the fact, Brian, that we're on opposite ends of this. And I knew you were
For
going
the
to pick
first
Fury.
time in a while too.
Yeah.
Like, we've
And
been agreeing on a bunch of fights lately.
yeah, it's true. And our records are actually pretty good as well. And I think this is a 50-50 fight where that's okay, though. It's good that we're going separate ways. And I think if you take a look at the line there, more money came in on Usyk, by the way, in the last 24 hours. But I think people are kind of torn on who they're going to pick.